now we're in the Tower of the God, which is not a very fun dungeon. Look at how slowly you move around in this place. Like, they couldn't have... Like, the indoors areas are not properly designed for sailing because there's no wind. So you can't take advantage of the sail, you just cruise around slowly. It's a really good thing that you only sail around indoors twice. And the second time, you barely even do it. It's kind of weird that this place is called, like, the Tower of the Gods. When, in Link to the Past, they censored out the religious references. Like, they called the Tower of Hera Mountain Tower. And they're going to call the game Triforce of Gods. But by this point, they don't really care about mentioning gods anymore. Like, by Ocarina of Time, they stopped caring. So, one of the reasons I hate this dungeon is that it's kind of confusing where you're supposed to go, because I just got the compass, and here I'm going to a part of the dungeon that gives me the map. Like, I just want to beat the dungeon, but because I forgot where exactly I was supposed to go, I end up going to a bunch of rooms that were completely optional. And like, there's so many different rooms you can go into right from the start. How are you supposed to know which one you have to go to? And of course, you can't climb up that ledge. Like, that just seems inconvenient. Like, in general, the rising water is the definition of inconvenient. It's not even a challenge, because it's not like you can overcome it. It just happens, and you have to deal with it. I constantly get inconvenienced by the rising water, where I'm trying to do something, and then suddenly the water rises, and now I'm swimming. Or the water descends, like here, and now I have to wait in frustration, because I can't do anything. This isn't providing a challenge, it's just making me wait. Did I just have Link rise up while standing up in a normal standing animation while he was climbing to the boat? Huh. I mean, I kind of like this puzzle. You can, like, place objects on switches. Like, regular objects, not just statues, also the jars. Like, I like that. I like when jars are more than just jars that you can break open to get stuff. Like, they're also stuff you can take advantage of in the actual dungeon puzzles. See what I mean about the rising water being an inconvenience? Because here, the rising water prevents you from getting out of the room. And then you have to go all the way down there. And you have to make sure that there's something on top of the switch to create the bridge. But of course, the instant the water rises, it disappears. So you have to wait. Like, there's nothing that you can do. It's just waiting. You need to bring statues like this to their altars, or whatever they're called. And that's basically how you progress past the rising water part of the Tower of the Gods. Thankfully, the rising water is restricted to the lowest floor, which makes sense, because the rising water is the Great Sea. But I don't understand why the rising water just, like, rises and then falls, and then rises and then falls, like at intervals. That's not how the Great Sea works. It just arbitrarily does it in the Tower of the Gods to inconvenience you. Like, the music of this place is atmospheric and can be epic occasionally. But it's nothing amazing. I guess it is my favorite dungeon theme though. But that's not saying much, considering that the dungeon themes in this game are all just about ambience. So they're very boring and forgettable. Another instance where the rising water doesn't really add anything. I'm just waiting. Like, this isn't really me doing anything. I'm just waiting around and doing nothing. How is that good game design? I like this puzzle otherwise though. You have to make a bridge for yourself with crates. It's kind of hard to tell like how much space between the crates is too much space, so it's good to just be careful, because you might end up not realizing that you can't jump that far. And of course, you can't keep on moving forwards and jumping, because you might end up just falling into the water anyways. You have to make absolutely sure that you land on the crates. Also, I attacked the torches there to show off that you can't simply attack them to light them. You have to walk into them. These things are really annoying. And they just decide to drop them on top of you as your reward for getting the key. If you take away their chew jelly, it doesn't give you some special gold jelly like would be interesting and provide variety in terms of the amount of potions you can get. Instead, they just give you boring old red chew jelly. That's lame. Like, I understand restricting the elixir to just only being able to have it in one bottle because it's overpowered. I get that. Like, this game's easy enough as it is. But it's just so underwhelming that you have this gold choo-choo, but it just gives you boring old red chew jelly, and that doesn't even make sense because it's not red. In another instance there, where the rising water was just making me wait around and do nothing. And more waiting around. You have to defeat all of the choo-choos, or else you won't be able to get up to that statue. So, if the water rises, you can't do anything. Compare this to Twilight Princess, where you can be in the water and you can still attack. You just have to have the iron boots on. And there isn't really any iron boots to allow you to walk on the water. Like, if you can't use the iron boots to walk underwater in this game. Water boots are actually an unused item in the game data. They don't really do anything when you put them into the game by hacking, because they didn't have a chance to actually program them. Link just puts them on, but nothing happens. So they didn't finish programming the water boots. It's theorized that we would have been able to walk underwater with them, and they took that concept and would run with it with the iron boots in Twilight Princess. Well, I say that, but technically you did walk around with the iron boots underwater in Ocarina of Time. I forgot, because again, I haven't played that game. Although I know a lot about the water temple, so... I was just thinking in terms of Wind Waker compared to the next game afterwards. Yay! More waiting around and doing nothing. This is fun. And you know what's annoying about that eye there? You need the dungeon item to actually activate it. So, you have to go all the way back here after getting the dungeon item in order to get a chest. So that's probably one of the chests that you're going to miss out on, because you're going to want to progress through the dungeon. You're not going to want to get the dungeon item and then go all the way back here to this tedious room just to get a treasure chart. So, what's this chest that I worked so hard to get? Oh, a joy pendant. That's fun. That was totally worth it. Also, did that respawn? That cracked wall, it looked like it respawned. Like, I did destroy both of the cracked walls, didn't I? Something I haven't mentioned about the cannon yet. In the HD version of the game, they actually added a targeting reticule, so you can actually see what you're shooting this time around. The cannon in Wind Waker originally was absolutely atrocious, because you couldn't see what you were targeting. Like, you had no way of knowing whether you shooting it would actually hit it or not. In the HD version, they actually improve on the gameplay by showing a red circle I don't think that's really enough to make up for the fact that they didn't bother to put in any sort of bonus dungeon or anything. Like, I know that's... I don't really think that's that nitpicky, to be honest. Because again, Link's Awakening DX had a bonus dungeon. Link's Awakening, like, Link to the Past on the Game Boy Advance had a bonus dungeon even. I don't see what was so hard about that. Speaking of hard, this is easily the most dickish and cheaply placed enemy in the game. Like, look at this! How the hell am I expected to avoid that? The laser just instantly shows up. And you're forced to constantly get hit over and over again, just getting this statue here. I can barely even pick this thing up for a second. Just look at this. Why did people think this was a good idea? And you need to carry that statue all the way over there. That just screams bad design. Why can't you just have those statues right next to the switches? In fact, why do you even have to have the switches puzzle at all? That pink Beamos is such a pain in the ass. I don't know why they decided to put it in there. Like, this is before you're actually able to attack these things. And I don't think you'd be able to defeat it even if you could attack it, because its vulnerable head appears and then disappears so instantly that it's impossible to defeat it. You'll get hit trying to attack it. Easily one of the cheapest rooms in the game, if not the cheapest. I honestly don't know what they were thinking with that. But finally, we're past the rising water area. Now, we're at a part of the dungeon that's actually good. Well, I say that, but eventually we're going to get to the command melody, which is a song for the Wind Waker that lets you, well, do something pretty interesting, pretty gimmicky, but not really something fun. There was a lot of fan backlash when this game's art style was revealed, because what fans were falsely told was the trailer for this game had a realistic art style. And haters of the art style actually called this game Zelda. Also, did you see that Link did that voice clip there? Yep, this is actually the first canon Zelda game with voice acting. Just like I said at the beginning of the Let's Play. Link actually talks in this game. And this is the first game where Link ever talks, aside from, like, the CDI games where he spoke with really hammy performance. But this is the first official Zelda game for him to talk. And I think he has the perfect voice for the kind of character he is. Although maybe I would have found his voice more annoying if he had spoken more. And like I had heard him speak sentences. I hate having to constantly lug that statue around. Because it means that you can't really do anything while you're carrying a statue. You can't attack enemies or swing on grappling hook swingers or anything. But yeah, here we get to learn the command melody. This is the first song in the game that requires you to hold left on the control stick in order to do it. So it's like 4 notes long. I don't really see the point of them playing the melody twice when they're going to always have the instructions for doing it right below you anyways while you're trying to do it for the first time. Like, it's not like you hear it and you don't actually see the directions you have to press, and so you just have to figure out what directions you have to press based on what you hear. That would have been more challenging, but instead they just waste your time making you hear the melody for like twice in a row for no reason. But yeah, I hate the command melody because controlling the statues isn't very fun. The statues move really slowly. Like, they basically they jump forwards. That's how they walk. They just constantly make small little hops. and they walk really slowly because of that. And they can't really do anything other than that. So it's not really that fun controlling them. Like, say what you want about Sonic's alternate gameplay, but at the very least, the characters were a lot more fun than that. Like, you didn't have a character that literally just walked by making really short hops, and that was it. You never had a character, and, worst of all, you're forced to switch to this character in the middle of Link gameplay. Like, it's not like they have a completely separate section of the dungeon reserved for this character. Like, it's just like in Sonic 06, where you have the Amigos, where you're playing a Sonic level, and then all of a sudden it randomly decides to switch to Tails, who is terrible in that game. I'm not really sure how they managed to screw that up, because he was, if anything, Tails in SA1 was the best part of that game. So I'm not really sure how they managed to screw that up. I mean, just look at this, really? You're not doing anything interesting, you're just slowly moving forwards. They can't do anything other than just walk forwards. This is basically alternate gameplay in a Zelda game, but it's not interesting at all. And this isn't the only dungeon where you're going to be using the command melody. The characters that you control become more interesting after this point, but they're never really fun because you still can't attack enemies with them. You still can't do anything. Like, they have their own unique abilities, but like, they can't, they're defenseless, and if they get attacked, then you get returned to Link, and so you have to use command melody all over again. I'm really glad that this is here because people could easily get stuck at this point. Because how are you supposed to know otherwise that leaving the room isn't going to respawn the statue right where you got it? How are you supposed to know without that Gossip Stone message that it's perfectly fine to leave them right where they are? Like, for all you know, leaving the screen will just despawn them. So it's good that they tell you that you can just do that. I remember that I would play through this game a couple times, once or twice, and I would use the code to have the Megaton Hammer right from the very beginning of the game. And I would just use that and ignore the sword. It's actually mandatory to get the sword, not only because it's completely impossible to beat this Darknut without the sword. Like, you need to use the sword or you're not going to be able to beat him. But it's also because there's actually an invisible wall in front of the trees blocking your way to the forest in Outset Island. And that invisible wall disappears when you get the sword, which is weird. But yeah, I love the Darknuts. I really do. They're really fun. They're the most fun part of the combat in this game. You can still spam the spin attack so you can sort of destroy their armor that way, but it's mostly about parries, and parries are really fun. What's not fun, however, is the bow, because you move so fast when you're trying to target with it. The controls are so sensitive for targeting with the bow that I constantly end up missing because you just go past what you're trying to aim at. And I don't have the patience to move the targeting reticule really slowly until I get to what I want. Like, I'm an expert with the bow in Twilight Princess, but in this game, it's honestly not very fun to use.